Saying, you're driving a truck here.
What an intro.
Yeah, really.
No.
The Yukon is a place of silence and secrets. Snowdrifts shift overnight, rivers change their course, and the earth hides stories that no one can see. In this vast, cold land, miners like Parker Schnabel work every day under extreme conditions, chasing gold while battling both nature and competition. For months, whispers had moved through the mining community about Parker's claim, his crew, and his complicated relationship with Tony Beets, a man who was mentor, rival, and sometimes enemy all at once. The rumors said that something unusual was happening on the Beets claim, something that could affect Parker's operations. But no one, not even Parker himself, expected the first real proof of a secret to come from within his own camp. It all started with a foreman, a man who had worked alongside Parker for years, and who knew that some truths were more dangerous to keep than to reveal. On a late autumn morning, the air was sharp with cold and urgency. Machines clattered through thick mud. Bucket lines creaked and the cold wind bit through gloves like teeth. Parker had been noticing a troubling pattern. The numbers from his mining runs were dropping, and the pay layer, the layer of earth containing gold, was not behaving naturally. It seemed influenced, as if someone was redirecting it, manipulating it behind the scenes. Parker knew the land well. He had grown up reading it like a book. Yet now, he felt a growing sense of unease. Something was not right, and instinct told him that it had to do with Tony Beets, the man whose claim ran nearby. That day, what made the moment different wasn't the weather, or the machines, or even the season closing in. It was the foreman, who approached Parker quietly, almost reluctantly, as if the air itself might carry consequences. His voice was low, drowned slightly by the rumble of an excavator, but his words struck with the weight of stone. He told Parker he had seen something on Tony Beets' claim, something that Tony had deliberately kept hidden, something that Parker needed to know. Parker's face tightened. The irritation flickered away, replaced by focus. Years of reading people under pressure had taught him to recognize truth, and he could tell the foreman was carrying a burden too heavy to hide any longer. Together, they moved to a ridge overlooking Parker's operation, where the machines hummed below like a small, busy city. The wind whipped around them, cold and sharp, but the foreman's revelation cut through the noise. He described a trench on Tony Beets' claim, one that should not have been there, at a depth and location that made no natural sense. He had seen two of Tony's crew working late at night under floodlights, far past the official working hours listed in logs. The trench cut directly into a geological path that, if widened, could divert gold-bearing gravel away from Parker's ground. Parker's response was not dramatic outwardly. He folded inward, every muscle and thought focused. This was no ordinary mistake or minor competition. It was a strategic move, made in secrecy, intended to manipulate the gold supply and affect his claim. The foreman explained how the trench aligned perfectly with the pay layer Parker had been chasing all season. The timing was not coincidence. It was deliberate, orchestrated by someone who knew exactly when and where Parker would be most vulnerable. Parker's mind raced, piecing together every detail, every observation, every number he had seen. For a long moment, they stood silently. The distant clanging of machinery was the only sound. Parker stared at the horizon, where Tony's claim stretched across rolling, frozen land. He thought about Tony, a man known for being bold, confrontational, and secretive. Now, The secretive side had become real and tangible, threatening Parker's season and every effort he had invested. Finally, Parker asked the question hanging in the cold. Why now? The foreman answered immediately. The trench was expanding. The digging was accelerating. Tony's actions had reached a point where staying silent would mean complicity. The foreman admitted he had debated keeping quiet, but realized that watching Parker chase manipulated ground had crossed a line. The truth, heavy and undeniable, had to be shared. Parker's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in clear focus. He demanded every detail, every sighting, coordinate, and timestamp. The foreman provided them with precision. As the pieces fell into place, Parker felt a chilling clarity. This was not a simple boundary dispute. It was a silent, calculated effort to redirect resources and reduce Parker's gold output. And the question remained, why would Tony risk so much to hide this trench? Why work under lights with a small crew in the dead of night? Why guard it secretly instead of logging it officially? The answers lay somewhere beneath the Yukon's permafrost, guarded by one of the smartest miners in the valley. The foreman asked what Parker would do next. The decision was not simple. Confronting Tony could ignite a conflict. Going public could turn rumor into spectacle. And investigating quietly meant treading a dangerous line. Parker's voice was steady. They would find the truth the Yukon way, quietly, methodically, without revealing their plans. Secrets this valuable always carried a cost. As the camera pulled back across the valley, the space between Parker's and Tony's claims felt narrower, darker, more dangerous. The foreman's revelation was just the first fracture in a deeper, hidden truth. And the Yukon, with all its shifting earth, was only beginning to reveal it. The following days at the Big Nugget operation were tense. Parker and his team analyzed the foreman's notes repeatedly. Each timestamp, coordinate, and observation was checked and rechecked against Parker's own run logs. It became clear that Tony's trench was deliberately designed to intersect with Parker's planned digging path. The realization hit Parker like ice in his veins. This was not a random act. It was a carefully planned move to redirect valuable gold-bearing gravel away from his claim. Every machine movement, every work hour, every adjustment made by Tony's crew pointed to one purpose: control and sabotage. Parker called in his most trusted crew members, workers who knew the land and the machines intimately. He explained the situation slowly, step by step, highlighting the trench, the nighttime activity, and the overlapping logs. Their expressions shifted from confusion to recognition as the weight of the secret became clear. The Yukon was never easy, and miners knew that surprises could come at any time. But this level of manipulation was unprecedented. Parker studied maps and notes with a laser focus. Every measurement, every sighting, every line of disturbed earth became part of an invisible map in his mind. He thought about Tony, who had built a reputation on knowledge, secrecy, and cunning. Tony was clever, and his actions demonstrated not only skill, but the willingness to manipulate situations to his advantage. Parker also considered the risks of confronting him directly. Tony had a history of being confrontational and unpredictable. A direct challenge could escalate tensions and create more problems than solutions. Going public, making the situation a spectacle, could harm reputations and attract unwanted attention from regulators, other miners, or the media. Parker's decision-making process required patience, observation, and strategy. He knew that the Yukon demanded careful thought and precise action. Every step, every choice, had consequences that could ripple through the season. Quiet investigation became the obvious path. Parker and the foreman devised a plan to monitor activity on Tony's claim without revealing their knowledge. They coordinated watches, observed machinery movements, and compared notes with Parker's own operations. The trench itself became the focal point. They measured its length, depth, and alignment with the pay layer, recording every detail. Parker realized that the trench was not just about gold. It represented control. Whoever had created it understood the land, timing, and Parker's strategy. This level of planning suggested experience, patience, and precision. It was more than competition. It was an attempt to outmaneuver him silently, behind the scenes. Parker's understanding of the land helped him predict possible extensions of the trench, potential manipulations of the gravel flow, and the timing of future work by Tony's crew. Every observation informed his next move. The team worked methodically, noting every detail with precision. Parker stayed calm and controlled. He did not react with anger. Instead, he analyzed and planned. In the Yukon, emotions could lead to mistakes. Logic, observation, and timing were the true tools of survival. Each night, Parker reviewed the foreman's observations, mapping them against his own records. He noticed patterns: when and where machines were used, how gravel flows were adjusted, and the alignment of disturbances with the pay layer. Parker realized that this was a strategic play to redirect gold away from his claim without immediate confrontation. The more he understood, the clearer the risk became. The situation was delicate. One wrong move, and tensions could explode between the claims. Yet Parker also knew that ignoring it could cost an entire season's worth of gold. He worked quietly, planning every step as though moving pieces on a chessboard. The foreman's honesty had opened a door to truth, but it also revealed the complexity of the challenge. Parker had to balance caution, strategy, and timing. The Yukon demanded respect for both nature and human cunning. Every calculation mattered. Every decision had weight. Parker and his crew prepared for long days of observation, recording, and careful work. They watched machinery, monitored the trench, and considered potential countermeasures. The operation was not just mining anymore. It had become an investigation. Parker's mind was fully occupied with strategy. He thought about what Tony might do next, how the trench could evolve, and what steps could be taken to protect Parker's claim. Every night, plans were reviewed, possibilities considered, and contingencies prepared. The team worked as a cohesive unit, understanding the stakes and trusting Parker's guidance. Each detail was important, and Parker left nothing to chance. This was a season unlike any other. A simple boundary dispute had transformed into a battle of strategy, patience, and knowledge. The Yukon, harsh and unpredictable, was now the stage for a silent conflict, and Parker was determined to stay ahead. As days turned into weeks, the tension in the valley grew. Parker observed Tony's claim from a distance, tracking every movement. The trench continued to expand, confirming the foreman's earlier warnings. Parker realized that Tony's actions were deliberate, timed, and designed to stay under the radar. He documented every detail, building a clear picture of the manipulation. Parker also took note of his own crew's performance. He ensured that every run was measured, every output checked against expectations, and every anomaly recorded. The Yukon taught him to trust the land, the machines, and his instincts. Now, his instincts were warning him that this was more than just competition. It was a calculated attempt to undermine his claim. Parker and the foreman discussed the implications of confrontation. They weighed the risks of approaching Tony directly, knowing that tensions could quickly escalate. They considered the consequences of revealing the trench to outsiders, understanding that publicity could cause more harm than good. Instead, they decided to continue observing, documenting, and analyzing every movement. Parker also reflected on the history between him and Tony. They had a complicated relationship, built on mentorship, rivalry, and sometimes distrust. Tony's actions demonstrated a new level of cunning, revealing that secrecy had always been part of his strategy. Parker understood that patience, careful observation, and calculated responses were his best tools. Each day, he walked the perimeter of his claim, noting changes in the trench, machinery movement, and crew activity. He studied patterns, adjusted plans, and anticipated potential risks. The Yukon demanded both vigilance and strategy. Parker's team supported him. Understanding the seriousness of the situation, each member played a crucial role, monitoring activity, recording observations, and maintaining precision in every task. Together, they created a clear picture of the unfolding situation. Parker also considered the broader implications. This was not just about gold. It was about trust, control, and survival. Tony's manipulation could affect not only Parker's claim, but also the reputation and operations of the entire mining community. Parker realized that strategic thinking, patience, and observation were essential. He could not act impulsively. He had to plan carefully. The trench became both a challenge and a guide. It revealed Tony's methods, timing, and intentions, allowing Parker to anticipate next moves. Every detail mattered. Every observation was crucial, and every decision had to be weighed. As the days passed, Parker grew more confident in his strategy. He relied on logic, data, and his understanding of the land to make decisions. He communicated clearly with his crew, ensuring everyone understood the plan. Each action was precise, methodical, and measured. The Yukon remained harsh and unforgiving, but Parker's preparation gave him an advantage. He was ready to respond, adapt, and protect his claim. And as night fell over the valley, floodlights illuminating machinery, Parker knew that the season was far from over. The trench, Tony's secret, and the unfolding strategy represented not only a challenge, but an opportunity. An opportunity to outthink, outmaneuver, and protect his operations in one of the most challenging mining regions on Earth. In the Yukon, gold was never easy to find, and trust was always fragile. Parker had learned both lessons well. The foreman's revelation had opened a door, and Parker was prepared to navigate the path carefully, quietly, and methodically. The silent battle for the claim was just beginning, and the stakes had never been higher.